The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The Washington Wizards have traded for Trae Young.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast.
Breaking news that Trae Young will don a Washington Wizards uniform. No draft picks involved in this trade, which is a bit surprising to me. I thought Washington would get some draft compensation as part of this deal, but nope. The deal is straight up. Washington acquires Trae Young for C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert. AB, I just need your initial reaction, my guy. I know you're hyped up right now.
We got a point guard. Ladies and gentlemen. We got Ice Trae in the freaking district. The last time we had a guy with box office like him, John Wall, baby. Russell Westbrook, that was a short tenure, but I mean, this is Trae Young. You don't give up any of your young guys. AJ Johnson fan club. You can sleep happily knowing that AJ Johnson's still a Wizard. I am surprised, though, Ben, that you didn't get any draft capital. I thought with the $49 million that you have to owe Trae Young, you would have to get that Cleveland first round pick that Atlanta had, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, you have a guy that's going to get fans to come to Capital One Arena, a guy that's going to evolve this Wizards development with the young guys, lobs to Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly's game, Keyshawn George, Trey Johnson, Trey to Trey. Are you kidding me, Ben? This is what we're talking about. This is Will Dawkins' plan. Let him cook. And I'm going to say it one more time. I said it with the stream with Greg, or the vid that we did with Greg. Will Dawkins, with Bradley Beal's horrendous contract in probably NBA history, went from Bradley Beal to Chris Paul to Jordan Poole to C.J. McCollum and now to Ice Trae Young without giving up any draft capital. Love it.
On today's show, we tell you why Washington's front office asset management was absolutely masterful throughout the process of this entire teardown. And it's what made this move possible today. And it's what makes moves in the future possible as well, because this will be an expiring deal for Washington next year as well, unless they make the decision to extend him to a new contract. We know that was part of the reporting, is that Trae Young wanted to be extended by his new team, but the Wizards don't have to do anything if they don't want to. The Wizards in 2023, when Michael Winger and Will Dawkins took over a complete dumpster fire pile of mediocrity that was left by Tommy Shepard, it started with Bradley Beal on the worst contract in NBA history. They traded him for Chris Paul, plus 6 seconds and 4 swaps. You traded Chris Paul for Jordan Poole, plus a 2030 first-round pick, and then you dump Poole's salary for C.J. McCollum, and then you trade McCollum's expiring salary, and you land Trae Young. All of this moving off the worst contract in NBA history without having to give up first-round picks for it. Absolutely incredible stuff. This front office moved with incredible foresight throughout the entirety of this process, and that's what gives me confidence in the move going forward. And I'm not even hyping it up right now, the move, because I think Trae Young is the lead guard of the future for this Washington Wizards team. He might be. He might be a pivotal piece for them next year, depending on what happens. He is a $49 million player option. He will surely opt into that. He'd be crazy to turn down that money. But then it kind of becomes a prove-it year for Trae Young. If he wants to be a $50+ million player, next year he'll get an opportunity to prove he can stay healthy, to prove that he can compete on a team that's trying to increase its win total next year after your third and hopefully final year of bottoming out. It's crazy to me that this front office moved in this direction. Everybody was confused initially when the trade was made where Jordan Poole and Sadiq Bey go out the door, and you say, I don't know, you feel like you could have got more for Jordan Poole. But financial flexibility was so important to Winger and Dawkins. They talked about it ad nauseum in the pregame press conference, saying if you have that flexibility, it allows you to make a splash move like this because of the cap space you have freeing up when you have these expiring deals. There was a reason the Wizards were the only team that could have executed a deal like this, and it's because of the way the front office moved over these past couple of years. An excellent job, even though you don't get the draft picks, albeit that is a little bit disappointing to me. I really did think some draft capital might come over part of this trade. I still think this is an excellent trade for Washington to add what will be another expiring deal next year and a talented player that could help you out, help this young core develop as you move forward. I just think this was a masterful job by the front office to get to this point after starting with a terrible, mediocre roster that had Bradley Beal's contract attached to it.
They were given a god-awful hand when they first started in the district, Will Dawkins and his crew, and what they've done up till this point, how can you not be impressed? How can you not have faith in Will? Let Will cook. I think right now, it's all about the young guys now. We're ahead of schedule because I thought this was happening near the trade deadline, but hey, what we saw tonight, Trae Johnson, 20-point games. We're going to see more of that. Corey Kispert, I loved him, was a big fan of Gonzaga, had his moments here, and it was fun while it lasted. CJ McCollum gave you 40-point games, but we all know that his future was definitely not being in the district for that long. So Trae Young, and I'll say one thing, man, this was under wraps. I did not think, I joked about it like a month ago when it came out that he's going to be done in Atlanta, but I did not think that he was going to come to Washington. If you told me 3-4 years ago that Trae Young's going to be a Wizard, I think you're crazy. And this is a Trae Young who, if you look at his assists, Ben, he can dime the ball really well. And what have we been asking for so far this year, Ben? The one thing,
an honest-to-God point guard.
An honest-to-God point guard, flawed by design when we didn't have one and realized maybe we're going to draft one in Darren Peterson. But maybe Trae Young is the answer. And I know people, Ben, are going to bring up, he can't play defense. He's too short. But who cares, Ben? In today's NBA, if you can score the ball like him from 40 feet and can throw lobs to a young guy in Alex Sarr, sign me up.
I will say, Trae Young is the antithesis of what Winger and Dawkins have tried to establish here, which is positional size and defenders. Trae Young doesn't really provide you any of those things, but not everybody is going to fit that mold on any given championship caliber team. And I'm not saying they're going to be a championship caliber team, but they're going to be far from that still. This team has a long way to go, but you're not making any long-term commitment. You might be able to flip Trae Young again next year for more assets if somebody desperately wants him at the deadline next year because it's an expiring deal. A true contending team could definitely make a move to get Trae Young as an expiring contract. It wouldn't be that big of a commitment for a team to do. The Wizards will obviously have the financial capability to make this deal happen. You have Corey Kispert's $13 million coming off the books now. You have CJ McCollum, $34 million come off the books. The front office moved in such a way where you could make a move like this. If you would have told me in the summer of 2023 when this new front office came in, I was excited because it signified to me that this organization was going to take a new direction, take the approach that I thought was right, which was to tear things down and start from the ground up. And man, it has been a brutal and lengthy process. And you as a Wizards fan, you deserve to see this team play competitive basketball. You deserve to see a 4-time All-Star player become a desired destination guy. He wanted to play for Washington. Alex Sarr started this trend 2 years ago when he ducked the Atlanta Hawks to come to the Washington Wizards. And I also have sources that have told me from other people that know people around the league that the Washington Wizards are looked at as a respectable organization now. And I think what the front office has done throughout the entirety of this rebuild process to turn Beal essentially into Trae Young for a bag of chips, that's why they command the respect. The Wizards are becoming a real respectable organization. They still have a ways to go in terms of being legit, in terms of being competitive. But next year, you're out of your bottoming out phase. You're going to keep that draft pick this year. You're going to finish bottom 4 and try your luck again in the lottery. You haven't had your luck in the past. But if this year's your year and you get somebody like A.J. DeBonsa, you get Cameron Boozer to pair alongside Alex Sarr, there's going to be reasonable expectations for this Wizards team to be better next year, to make a real legitimate jump the way teams do in year number 4 of a rebuild. And Trae Young can be the lead guard that this Wizards team hasn't had in a long, long time. You know, the last player to average 10 or more assists in a game for the Washington Wizards was Russell Westbrook in his lone season in 2020, where he averaged 11.7 in that season. The Wizards haven't had anything close to a playmaker like that. If you get a true pass-first player like this in Trae Young, he's going to dominate the basketball a lot, but this can do wonders for a lot of your guys on this team. I know a lot of people think he's a black hole. They think he's a ball hog. They think he can't defend. I think he can make players on this team better, and I think he can really help them out next season.
As a wise man once said, Ben, I used to pray for times like this. If you were a dormant Wizards fan, welcome back. This is the first step because you landed your point guard here in Trae Young, and you're going to get a top 4 pick, knocking on every single piece of wood out there. A DeBonza, a Caleb Wilson. That core is set. Alex Sarr is just scratching the surface. Trey Johnson just dropped 20 points tonight. I mean, this is amazing, and this was what we were talking about. Year 3 of a rebuild. There aren't any shortcuts when it comes to this organization. What Will Dawkins is trying to do, and man, it's just surreal because this is a Trae Young that led the Hawks to a 2021 Eastern Conference Finals appearance, and he didn't really have much of a supporting cast, and now he's gonna have really good teammates here in Washington. And the fact that people are saying his attitude problem, he's a black hole. Come on, man. Are you going to be saying that when he first steps foot in Capital One and is draining threes from the logo and having 8 to 9 assists a game? I do wonder, though, Ben, when it comes to his playing time for this season, how many games do you think we see him play?
I hope he sits. I hope he sits for a pretty long time because the Wizards, they need to preserve this tank.
The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Before every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, player coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. The Packers and the Bears entered the playoffs on losing streaks.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into today's Locked On Packers and Locked On Bears crossover podcast. My name is Lauren Cox, host of Locked On Bears, alongside Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers. And I want to thank you for making either Locked On Bears or Locked On Packers your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. On the show today, we're breaking down this matchup for the third time in barely a month. These two teams know each other pretty well. I'm not expecting a lot of surprises, but yet both teams have some injury question marks. The guy's coming off an injury, and both teams have been playing pretty well. So all of a sudden, we still have a lot to learn. Maybe both teams have a lot to learn about themselves more than each other, including for the Packers, like who their head coach is going to be in the long term. Peter, I want to start there. Not that LaFleur is actually going to go anywhere, but like, is that a real distraction for the team? Because it's sort of floating around nationally of like, well, is he going to get an extension? Is he not? Is he just kind of floating out there? Could he leave? Could he not? Is that a real distraction at all? Or is it just, pushing it off to the future?
This is the dumbest storyline. I hate it. I'm not saying the question is dumb because I don't think it is. I just think as a distraction for this team, if they're distracted by it, he should be fired. Like, that's the reality. And I don't think he should be fired. But I mean, like, if they're letting it seep into the locker room, that's ridiculous. This is a playoff game against your division rival, a team that you blew a game that you had one cold if Romeo Doubs just catches the ball on an onside kick. And it still took 16 more things after that for the Packers to lose that game. That would be absurd. And I think that would be the kind of thing that makes you reconsider what your locker room is made of, what your coach is. I don't think it's happening right now is really the thing. And this is why podcasts exist. This is why we have space to talk. I just can't imagine it's affecting that locker room in any way. And I think part of that is that locker room knows how good they are. That team knows how good they are. And they remember what this looked like in Denver in the second half. They're up 9 against the Broncos. They are rolling, and Jordan Love rears back to throw a deep ball to Christian Watson. And I'm telling you, Lauren, speaking for Packer fans everywhere, when Jordan Love let that ball go, every Packer fan watching went, we're going to the Super Bowl. Every single one. Because they're coming off, I'm serious, because they're coming off the Lions, the impressive Lions performance. Beat down is probably overstating it, but they dominated that Lions team that night. Like, that was a 10-point game late. They kicked a field goal to make it a 1-possession game. The Packers controlled that game from start to finish. The Bears game the next week, an emotional win, right? And then you're going to Denver, the number 1 seed in the AFC. And they were controlling that game too. And they're up 2 scores, and they're taking a deep shot. Like, this was the whole problem with Matt LaFleur, was he was too conservative. He played not to lose against the Eagles, played not to lose against the Panthers, played not to lose against the Browns. That was not what he was doing. And, things sort of fell apart from there. Christian Watson got hurt. Zach Tom had just been hurt. Micah Parsons gets hurt in the second half. Evan Williams gets hurt in the second half. And all of that is true. And so they know how good this team is in that locker room. They still believe that they believe they can beat this Bears team. They believe they can go to Seattle in the divisional round and beat that team. Like, this team still has that belief, which is why I don't think the Bears, the coaching thing is something that is really on top of their mind. I want to ask you about this, because I saw some Bears content creators talking about, and I think some Bears players talking about the first game against the Packers. They kind of hyped themselves up a little too much, and they came out and really did not play well in the first half of that first game at all. And it was still a close game at halftime, because the Packers had some unforced errors and other things that allowed them to stay in that game. And then they kind of did the same thing in the second game too. They didn't really make that adjustment. So what are you expecting from the guys? What are you expecting from Ben Johnson? Because Ben Johnson, there's no off switch for him. Like, it's going to be an intense week. He's going to be as fired up as ever. And so it's going to be up to these players to find, in a playoff game, like, how do you stay even keeled for a group that, outside of a couple players, have just never been in this position before?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a trial by fire there, where they just you got to just kind of learn and do it on the fly, rather than try and tone things down too much. Because I think they tried to tone things down a little bit against the Lions in week 18. And Ben Johnson said, we're going with a more simple game plan, a little less motion, because we know the Lions are so multiple on defense, and they still started really slow in that game. Like, they haven't been able to kind of fine tune exactly where they need to be at the very beginning of games. And I think there's a feeling of maybe this will be the week they figure out where they need to be at the beginning of games. But also there's a feeling even if they're not where they need to be at the start, they will be by the fourth quarter, and they're always going to be in it, even if they're down a couple scores entering that period. So
yeah, they're so annoying.
Yeah, so it's hard to panic about the slow starts, but also it's becoming a frustration of why it's always something different, right? It's a false start here, it's a drop pass there, it's a blitz that they don't pick up properly here, it's a run stuff on third down there. Like, it's not one player failing consistently at the beginning of the games. It's something differently going wrong that eventually they get there.
It's just like a Caleb miss on first down on a slant. It's like, okay, guys there, you just missed it, and all of a sudden now you're in 2nd and 10, and you got to figure out where to go from there.
But that's the thing, though. That was the case early in the season in their slow starts. But the last 2 losses to the 49ers and Lions, he's been pretty dialed in. He had one bad throw in the first quarter against Detroit, and that was his only true miss early on. Third quarter and later in the game, he missed some throws for sure, but he hasn't been inaccurate at the beginning of games, even when the offense is slow. And that's the frustrating part. It's he's doing his job, and now they're quote unquote failing him at some times early on. Everything still has to come together nicely.
And that's not where you want to be in the playoffs. Neither of these teams playing their best football coming into this game, which is what makes it so fascinating. Because I went back and I remembered the Packers playing better earlier in the first game than they actually did. I felt like in the first half, that could have been a 14-21, 3 kind of score. And it wasn't, right? That game could have been more out of hand than it got. And I think in both games, you look at the Packers and you're looking at missed opportunities. I mean, they go 0-5 in the red zone. They have the fumble in the red zone. And I know Malik Willis was a part of that, but Josh Jacobs is your core player. He is your star running back, and he fumbles. Now, he was hurt. And I think that was part of it too, is you basically didn't see Josh Jacobs in the second game after that fumble. And it wasn't a, sit down, young man kind of fumble, benching. It was no, you obviously are hurting the team by trying to play hurt. And he's off the injury report this week. I think that's a huge one for the Packers, because go back to the fourth quarter of the first game. It's that run, that toss run, where he like splits the defense like he's Dwayne Wade on a pick and roll in like 2012 for the Miami Heat. Like it was that kind of thing where like 5 different Bears had a shot at him and he just like slips through all of them and picks up a 20-yard gain. That was a huge play in the game. And getting like, for example, that version of Josh Jacobs, to your point about fast starts, if you get a better version of Josh Jacobs and they can play a little bit more balanced offense, I think that would really help the Packers. I mean, the first drive, second game, they drove right down the field and they blow it on 4th and goal. It's like, if they score on that drive, who knows what's different about the rest of that game. So I think the fast start, I kind of think it's going to be another slow start for both of these teams. But if one of them can get off to a fast start, I think that it's going to create such an advantage, because it's going to amplify the anxiety that both teams are already feeling. I said earlier in the week, Lauren, that the fact that the Packers drew the Bears amplifies the pressure on the team. Like if this is the Eagles, I don't think they have the same pressure to go into Philly and win.
Totally.
Because this is the Bears, because they are favored to win, according to our friends at FanDuel. I think that amplifies the pressure on the Packers. And I think it was Greg Braggs who pointed out, like, this is going to be an electric crowd in Chicago, but if the Packers go up 7-0, it could get really quiet in that stadium. And that's something, if you're the Packers, like, I just think that's a bigger advantage for Green Bay in a situation like this than it is the other side for Chicago. And just because of the experience of these two teams, like the Packers have been in these moments. It's a young team, but they've still been in these moments. The Bears haven't. And so I think it's going to be, that first quarter is going to be, there are going to be a lot of tight sphincters in Chicago.
Two of the NFC's most consistent teams in the 2020s collide for yet another playoff battle. Eagles, 49ers. It's crossover Thursday. Eagles 49ers Croc this Sunday, 4:30, a wild card battle between, like I said, two teams that in the 2020s have been two of the most consistent teams in this conference. I mean, the amount of conference championships they've both made, Super Bowls as well. It's going to be another fun battle. And I think the theme, if you would agree, for both of these teams this year has been finding a way. Even if things aren't perfect on one side of the ball, like the Eagles on offense, for the 49ers, it's all the injuries. I think that's part of why these two teams have been so consistent in the 2020s, is each and every year they've been able to adapt to what that season requires. And I don't think this year has been any different.
Yeah, the 49ers, I mean, just the plethora of injuries that they've had this year to have to try to overcome has been unprecedented. You know, when you look at the amount of money that's just sitting out, it probably it has to be the most.
I've never seen anything like it. Yeah.
Yeah, missing guys like, Nick Bosa. And for a large part of the season as well, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, your quarterback was out. Your starting quarterback was out for a large percentage of the time. You're missing receivers, right? First round pick. So Ricky Pearsall, he's missed several games.
Yeah.
Michael Williams, rookie, getting his feet wet, still learning how to pass rush, but he was very helpful in the run game. Done for the season, torn ACL.
Right.
And there's been several other injuries that the 49ers have had to deal with. So just the amount of money that they've had sit out this year has been unprecedented. But Kyle Shanahan has done a terrific job of a couple of things. One, taking advantage of a schedule, and not the divisional schedule, because the division was very difficult, and I think that ups kind of 49ers' strength of schedule overall.
Sure.
But the non-divisional games weren't the most difficult. So I think because of that, the 49ers were able to not just stay afloat, but have an opportunity to be the number one overall seed. And with the challenges they had to deal with the injuries, it was extremely impressive. I think we all expected the 49ers, because of the schedule, during the preseason, when you look at it, they're going to have a good season. But when you have the injuries mount up the way they did, George Kittle was out for a while. You start to have all these injuries. There's no way, like, this team is done. So for them to still win 12 games was very impressive. So you just talked about the consistency of these two teams. That was some of the things that, Philadelphia has had to deal with as well.
Of course. And you look back, the thing it reminds me the most of to compare what the 49ers are dealing with this year to the Eagles is 2018 and 2019, the years after they won that first Super Bowl, they had to deal with so many injuries on both sides of the ball. I remember in 2019, I mean, Carson Wentz is throwing to a bunch of practice squad receivers to get in. So these two teams have both been able to overcome that kind of adversity in this past decade of NFL football where they've been so consistent. And yeah, you're right. The schedule has been pretty fair to the 49ers. It's part of why I picked them to be in the playoffs in the preseason. But the injuries do kind of even it out where it makes it all the more impressive. And this year's just a perfect representation of what Kyle Shanahan has meant to San Francisco, where it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It doesn't matter the situation of, no Brandon Ayuk either this year. Whatever happens on defense, I mean, they've always been consistent with him as head coach. It's part of why I don't know if he's going to win Coach of the Year, Croc, but I think he should absolutely be a finalist for what he's done. And the NFC is such a competitive conference too, so I think it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think, up until last week, he might have been the favorite or at least close to the favorite. I think with the loss there, you have to go with maybe Vrabel, maybe Ben Johnson. I mean, just kind of what he's done with Chicago. And I'm forgetting a team off the top of my head, but there are some other teams. Jacksonville Jaguars head coach Cohen. There's some guys that have done some very impressive things with their team. But yeah, no, Kyle, I think this has been, in my opinion, his most masterful coaching job. Losing your starting quarterback for 8 games, most people will be just down and out, season's done. But, I heard defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles in his comments he made 49ers quarterback. 49er fans were not happy about that at all.
Fangio's brutally honest, Croc. That's what he does.
And I like Fangio,
he's the best
49er defensive coordinator during some of the glory years with Jim Harbaugh. But I don't think he was all that wrong. Now, again, let me rephrase this before my 49er fan base attacks me. He said he didn't see much difference between Mac Jones and Brock Purdy. And I believe what he's speaking to is we essentially defend them the same. Now, 49er fans say, well, Brock Purdy is way more agile and he's more athletic. How could you say this? But that's not the 49ers game plan with them. The game plan with the two quarterbacks doesn't quite change. Now, maybe some of the ways they see the field, right? Maybe Mac Jones throwing underneath a little bit more, right? Or Brock Purdy's ability to extend plays with his legs, but it's not like you're going from, Mac Jones to Lamar Jackson. So, the 49ers don't use Brock Purdy's legs as a part of the run game.
Right.
So in the sense of the concepts and passing game, from Fangio's standpoint, it's like, well, it's essentially the same offense. We're preparing for the same things.
Yeah, it's not like Jalen Hurts, Croc, right? With designed runs, you're not using as much RPO and read option and those kind of things. So,
we do believe Brock Purdy better than Mac Jones, but
of course,
in his eyes, it's like, well, yeah, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo. It's Kyle's game plan,
Shanahan.
And we're defending that.
Absolutely. And I think that's going to be the key in this game is Fangio's defense, which has carried the way for the Eagles all season long. They've been a top 3, top 5 defense for the entire season. That's why they've been able to overcome. It's frustrating because this offense has the highest payroll in the entire NFL. There's stars or at least should be stars at every single position, but they've been one of the worst teams this year on third down. They've been one of the slowest teams to get out of the huddle, to get the snap off. They've been one of the worst teams on first and second down. So I think that's like the huge storyline for the Eagles in this game is, does the defense have to carry them again for the majority of this game? Can the offense make sure they don't drag down a championship-ready defense and be a unit that maybe they're not winning because of? I think the defense will carry them, but it's at least a unit that you can win with. And there's been so many times this year. You look at their last win where the starters played against the Buffalo Bills a couple weeks ago, 2 straight quarters, the third and fourth quarter, they only had 1 first down and 17 total yards. So that's going to be the theme of this game for the Eagles is now that there's no turning back, there is no next week to figure this out. Can an offense that has so many veterans on top 5, top 10 contracts that have been in these playoff games before, that have competed for and won championships, can they figure this thing out, or will we have our answer that, hey, this isn't going to get solved until the offseason. They need a new play caller. It's not going to be Kevin Patullo. This offensive line needs to get healthy. To me, Croc, that's like the big thing I'm watching for the Eagles. And I think the Niners are a great test for that. Even with all the injuries, this is a team that fights hard and plays really physical.
Well, I think for some of these teams that have been struggling a little bit to get things going offensively, the 49ers defense might be just the
That's why there's no
antidote,
excuses.
the recipe
Yeah.
that they're looking for. Again,
Mhm.
just 49ers just decimated by injuries. So there's a lot of inconsistencies on the defensive side of the ball. They look to kind of maybe have the offense be able to carry the load. Now, again,
Yeah.
we expected that heading into the season, that and there's a lot of young guys on this defense, a lot of guys that you're going to have to count on. I mean, how many new starters that are in their first or second years that were like
Yeah.
mid to late round draft picks that you have to count on to help you get to where you were before, right? Like a top 5 defense consistently in the NFL, but they're not quite that. You're seeing a lot of the young growing pains. You were not expecting Bosa, Fred Warner, and your rookie Michael Williams to be out, so that hinders things a little bit as well. And I think teams have essentially been able to take advantage of that a little bit, or at least keep them in rhythm. Last week 49ers gave up 13 points to Seattle, and it felt like just watching, like, man, the 49ers couldn't stop the run. Like Sam Darnold was efficient, and I'm still kind of weirded out by how that only resulted in 13 points. Sure. But a lot of the other teams have just been able to kind of move the ball at will, essentially. And it's been the 49ers offense that has been able to carry the load. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and all those guys, where it's like, all right, well, we're going to have to outscore teams. So for a team like Philadelphia, who, offense hasn't quite been clicking or been consistent, 49ers defense may be something that allows them to get there. And then from that standpoint, we may be looking at a shootout.
The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Before every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, player coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
It's wild card weekend, and the primetime matchup on Sunday has the 2-seed Patriots hosting the 7-seed Chargers.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Okay, it's time, David. It is time. David Drogemeyer, what's the biggest story in LA as we prepare for this one on Sunday night?
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty easy to figure out what the biggest story is for the Chargers. It has everything to do with Justin Herbert and can he exercise his playoff demons. Justin's currently 0-2 in the playoffs with obviously the last year, and his last time he was in was a 4-interception performance, and then the other one was his team giving up a 27-0 lead, and obviously leading to another big-time loss. And until he wins one, it's going to continue to be the biggest story for him. Even though the Chargers are going to be missing their Pro Bowl tackles, the pressure is on him, and it will be until that changes. So you also wonder, if he's going to be able to get that win and be able to go on a deep playoff run with the obvious issues on the offensive line. And it doesn't matter because, with quarterbacks, they get paid the most. They have the most responsibility. Therefore, whether they win or lose is put on them, fair or not.
Yeah, it's so true, and that's the pressure of being a quarterback, right, in the NFL. And it's pretty amazing watching outside looking in. Now, I used to do some national radio back in the day, so I've watched a decent amount of Herbert throughout his career. And Justin Herbert's such a talented guy, talented quarterback, just tremendous. But he has had some issues. And, I was shocked watching the last one against Houston. That was absolutely brutal. I just, kind of hard to explain how a guy so talented could have such kind of a meltdown in a playoff game. So I totally get that. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what the biggest story is for the Patriots when you look at this game coming up on Sunday night. And to me, David, is, how do the first timers perform? You got a quarterback in Justin Herbert, 2 playoff games. He hasn't played great. This will be Drake May's first playoff game. What does that do to the guy? And I know he's been talking to the media and he's trying to present himself as ready and capable and trying to understand what it's going to take to win an NFL playoff game. I have no doubt that Mike Vrabel will get Drake May and some of these other first timers. I have no doubt that Mike Vrabel will get those guys prepared, but a lot of crucial guys on this team, it's going to be their first shot. Not only Drake May, but Will Campbell protecting the blind side, Jared Wilson, rookie left guard, back at practice today, still with the red non-contact jersey. We'll see if he's back on Sunday night. Christian Gonzalez, this will be his first postseason game in the NFL. Shoot, you can even look at the kicker, and you can look at Andy Borregales and say, my goodness, what we just saw from the Baltimore Ravens, their rookie kicker, Tyler Loop, melting down, last Sunday night, costing the Ravens a playoff shot and a playoff home game. So, I mean, and really John Harbaugh, his job. So you have a lot of these young guys, a lot of first timers dealing with more media, dealing with more noise. And as you know, David, and I know watching the Patriots in prior years, the margin of error is so much slimmer in the postseason. You just need one rookie, one first timer in the playoffs to mess up, and that could cost you the football game.
100%. I think what we saw last year with the Chargers and the Houston Texans was that the Texans zeroed in on every single little deficiency that the Chargers had and exploited it to the max. So the margin for error is very, very small. You have to play high-quality football, mistake-free. Of course, we'll get into that later on when we talk about our keys to victory for each side. I'm sure that's going to have something to do with it. But yeah, you got some coaches that have some experience. The Chargers have a couple more players that have some playoff experience, but this is also a big situation for Jim Harbaugh as well. He wants to get his first playoff victory since returning to the NFL, where obviously his previous stint featured 3 NFC Championship game performances, including a Super Bowl appearance against his brother. So he came back with one mission in mind, Nick, and it was to win a Super Bowl championship. It's the last thing that is on, the mantle that's missing. It has that empty spot for him, and if he gets it, that's the last thing he kind of needs to solidify what I already feel like is a Hall of Fame coaching career.
Yeah, I mean, you look at these two coaches, I think a lot of people in the football world would love to have either of these guys coaching their team going into a playoff game. Mike Vrabel took Tennessee to the AFC Championship game going back a few years ago. And we know, Jim Harbaugh almost got the job done against his brother a long time ago. But, you look at these first timers again, you look at these young guys, they've never been there before. Will they wilt? That kind of thing can snowball. Now, the Patriots do have a couple of guys, Milton Williams, Carlton Davis. Milton Williams won a Super Bowl with Philly last year. Yep. Carlton Davis made a deep run with the Detroit Lions. So they do have some guys in the room that have at least made some deep runs and even won a Super Bowl, but you just don't know. And we're talking about a primetime game, Sunday night, NBC TV, Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth on the call, everybody watching you. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this young football team deals with that and how Drake May looks. Obviously, he's the biggest one that you look at. If he goes out there and he looks nervous, and, there have been times every once in a while where he can get a little jittery, he'll calm down, he'll figure it out. But, you do wonder in the back of your mind, is this the kind of first quarter where Drake May is airballing the football into the 5th row and you're going, this might take 2 or 3 series before he figures it out. Justin Herbert, at least, he hasn't been great in the playoffs, but he's been there. So you would think he'd be calm, cool, and collected at least somewhat on Sunday night.
Yeah, for sure. And I just kind of want to dispel some rumors out there about Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert could have played in the last game. It was all about getting him as healthy as possible, along with several other key starters on both sides of the ball. It wasn't just Justin. Khalil Mack didn't play. Derwin James didn't play. Deion Henley, their star linebacker, didn't play. Several of their offensive starters also didn't play. But this was all in an effort to try to get whoever they were playing, not necessarily the Patriots in particular, but whoever it was, they wanted to give him the most amount of rest possible to get that hand as healthy as he possibly could get it. And even with the hand injury, he went 3-1. So it wasn't like it was a huge impediment. It was something that he was able to work around. He even was able to take snaps under center. So I don't feel like the hand injury is going to inhibit the game plan offensively whatsoever.
Yeah, I happen to have Justin Herbert on my fantasy team this year. I know the fantasy football thing, so I did have a keen interest on that injury. I did have a keen interest on the offensive line, and I did watch the Chargers a decent amount this year. But yeah, I mean, I did not look at what they decided to do last weekend as a shot to the Patriots. I don't think they were trying to set up a Patriots matchup. And if you look at other teams, I mean, the Eagles did the same thing. They rested guys.
Yeah.
And that's just really a team philosophy and how you're going to handle the final week of the season when it's not going to significantly impact you. Now, you could talk about the Eagles who had the 2 seed up for grabs. That was a more interesting decision to me. But for the Chargers, they knew, right? They knew that they could only
They were playing
move
on the
so
road
far
no matter
here.
what.
So,
Yeah.
you know, do the smart thing. And your quarterback who's dealing with some stuff, your offensive line dealing with a lot of things, even the guys that are available dealing with some things, get healthy, give yourself the best shot when you get to the playoffs. That's how I looked at it. I did not think, I know some people try to carry that narrative, as they say. I wasn't buying it.
The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Before every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
It's Indiana and Oregon, part 2 in the Peach Bowl of the college football playoff.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's Indiana and it's Oregon, the Hoosiers and the Ducks. One of the greatest games of the regular season in the Big Ten. We get a rematch of it in the college football playoff. We're going to talk about how the Big Ten can win another national title and just make the entire SEC, want to quit football altogether. We're also going to talk about what improvements need to be made from the first game to this game, and also who has more pressure to win this game as well. But Spencer, you couldn't ask for a better matchup, man. How awesome is this going to be in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta Friday night? It's the Hoosiers and the Ducks.
Yeah, I can't wait to curl up in the fetal position and watch this game, as my lifelong dream could potentially be realized if they can get past the number 1 team in college football. I can't wait, Goins. I'm so excited. I'm only 20% joking with that remark, but I am excited to watch the game, because if I took this flag down behind me and put up my neutral arbiter of college football flag.
Oh, you still have that, huh?
That I do. I haven't gotten rid of it yet. And because, I still got that other show here at the network too. But the thing that is so exciting about this game is the first one was indeed, as you talked about, a great matchup, which is odd because I have heard, I don't know how many people say how Oregon was dominated by Indiana in the first go-around.
10-point loss in your home field.
Yeah, dominated. Absolutely. No, Indiana dominated Alabama. That's what dominating looks like. That's what controlling the entire game looks like. Indiana beat Oregon at Autzen, which does indeed give me pause to jump immediately on to telling everybody, take Oregon in the points. It's automatic. They're overreacting. Indiana's frauds. They're not. They're just not. Indiana is a really good football team that doesn't beat themselves, and Oregon has got a bunch of talent all over the field, and oh, by the way, is coming off the best defensive performance in the history of Oregon football. That is not an exaggeration. They haven't shut out a team in a bowl game since 1917 when they did it to Penn, not Penn State, just Penn.
Oh, mighty Penn.
And they did it in the college football playoff against the Big 12 champions. And yeah, they were a slight favorite. They actually closed as an underdog in the game, for whatever that's worth to people, because some folks said, well, they were supposed to win that game. They were favored. Well, they actually didn't end up as favorites when the line came to a close. So yeah, incredible defensive performance. The questions I have for Oregon are on the offensive side of the ball, and really on the offensive side of the ball only. I think I know exactly what to expect from Oregon's defense against Indiana's offense. I don't have that many questions, really. I'm not saying they're going to blank Indiana, just to be clear. I just know what it's going to look like, what the keys are, and kind of how this will go. But I think there will be a lot of really good back and forth, because as I've said a lot, Goins, Oregon's defense was not the problem in this first matchup.
Yeah, it was. And Indiana's defense played outstanding in the first matchup, because people tend to forget that one of the touchdowns Oregon scored was a pick six, right? And so Indiana's defense played extremely well in that game. Weather was kind of a factor, but not really down the stretch. But Indiana's defense played well, and they've only gotten better. Look what they did against Alabama. Look what they did against Ohio State. And so I'm not concerned about Indiana's defense at all, the same way you're not concerned about Oregon's defense. So I think it really does come down to which offense is able to execute, which quarterback doesn't turn the football over. Fernando Mendoza threw 1 pick last time. Dante Moore believe he threw 2 last time. And that was the difference where Indiana's able to capitalize on those things. And so we'll talk about improvements that need to be made from game 1 to game 2 in just a moment. But you proposed an interesting question before we hit record on this show, and it's the question of who has more pressure to win this game. Is it Oregon, who's trying to overcome the, jokes of not having a national title under their belt with Dan Lanning, who's one of the best coaches in college football? Or is it Indiana, who's trying to cap off the historic season, probably the greatest one of all time, if they are able to win it? I think it's Indiana. And I'm not saying that because I'm the Indiana guy. I think the Hoosiers have more pressure because of how they beat Ohio State and because of how they beat Alabama. I think everybody has jumped on the bandwagon. Everybody wants to see it. Everybody is waiting for the next beatdown that Indiana can hand out. And I'm not calling it a beatdown at all against Oregon. I don't believe that happens. But I think people are waiting for it. I think people want this Indiana team to win it all. I think Kurt Snetti, because the way he talks as well, I think the Hoosiers have more pressure to win this game.
That's where my head starts when I ponder the answer to the question that I posed.
It's a good question.
It's not where my head actually ends up. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Number one, Dan Lanning has been at Oregon longer than Kurt Snetti has been at Indiana.
True.
And I believe right now, pound for pound, Kurt Snetti is the best head coach in all of college football. The reason I can still sit here and say I think there is actually more pressure from a national standpoint for Oregon to win the game is they've been at this longer. Indiana is new kid on the block. And look, Dan Lanning has gotten Oregon further than he ever has before. They haven't been in this position. Last year it ended in the quarterfinal. The year before they didn't win a conference championship. They made the game. The year before they didn't do that. It has been a progression and a darn good one. And I do believe Dan Lanning will win a national championship as Oregon's head coach. Maybe it'll be this year. Maybe it'll be 2026. Maybe he'll make us wait until 2027 or 2028. We'll just see how the cookie crumbles here. Oregon has been in the national championship picture as a program for encroaching 2 decades at this point. They made it in the 2010 season, and ever since then, that's kind of been the standard where everyone in Eugene and Oregon fans in Portland or wherever they're from, they all look at the program and say, well, I've seen them get up to this level. When are you getting back to that? And sure, there have been a lot of exciting wins and exciting games, but my Oregon fans, my everydayers have heard me say this before. Oregon is the Rory McIlroy of college football. Their career, if you just look at it,
that's a good comparison,
is the envy of almost every other program. But because you see how much potential there is and how close they have come to getting to the top, everything that's short of that, even if it's really good, Rory winning the Wells Fargo, I think earlier this year or the year before, for most people, that's a big achievement. For Rory McIlroy, it feels, Rory won at Pebble Beach earlier this year. You could even see it on his face. And he was just kind of like, this is nice. This is fun. But we all knew what the real goal was. And so it was when. And
I expect Dan Lanning to hit his knees and cry on the middle of the field if he wins the national championship. I expect that to be duplicated.
There will be more than a few tears in Oregon country amongst the fans. I can assure you of that, because it would be something that they've waited for a really long time. So that's why I still land on, from a program standpoint, Lanning's been at Oregon longer. The investment at Oregon is top tier in winning a national championship. There's some pressure because Phil Knight's getting older, and he's been a huge part of Oregon, of course, and has wanted to see this for a really long time. And they've come really close, and they've been really good, and they haven't gotten there yet. Indiana's in year 2. I mean, we're talking 2 seasons ago, Goins. Indiana's a bottom dweller in the Big Ten, and now we're talking about them having more pressure than Oregon and win a national championship. I don't think that's the case. I think Indiana should be favored in the game, by the way, but I can't land on Indiana has more pressure to win a national championship than Oregon. They've been trying to do it for 2 years, really, and Oregon's been trying for over 15.
The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Before every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Miami Hurricanes are one victory away from essentially hosting a national championship game.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes.
Miami's in the Final Four.
In the Final Four, and it's sweet. And it comes down to one thing, Alex, talent. So as much as you talk about Mario Cristobal, and I want to give him props because on this playoff run and on this win streak after the SMU game, I feel like Mario has really stepped up his game a lot. He's not stupidly burning timeouts at bad times anymore. I mean, and that's an adjustment that's happened within this season. And I think the play calling has gotten better. So for all the people out there who call me the king of negativity or whatever, I like Alex's nickname for me better, for the record.
Postcast King.
Postcast King. And by the way, it's nice to see you without the bloodshot eyes on American soil with your background again back in the studio. But I just want to say that I want to recognize what Mario's done to improve in game. Like, we know the recruiting's there. I mean, the proof is right there in front of your face. The recruiting's there. I mean, he's as good as anybody in the country recruiting, right? And you know that mindset, that toughness, that domination on the line of scrimmage, that starts with him, that offensive lineman, that son of the immigrants from Cuba, who he talks about how Jimmy Johnson saved him and his brother and his whole family. And, there's a lot to like about Mario Cristobal, but his in-game coaching was not one of them, but he's gotten a lot better with that. So on this run, the coaching has gotten so much better. And another thing about it, Alex, the penalties have gone way down. I love the way those refs, I wish every officiating crew would be forced to watch that Miami-Ohio State game. It was a great game. It was a hard-hitting game. It was a clean game. And there were not flags thrown throughout the course of the game that just impeded the progress of the game. And how nice was it to see a game unfold between two great teams without the officials having such a big impact. And props to Miami for cleaning up their play. And just a great job, Alex, smacking Ohio State in the mouth, smacking Texas A&M in the mouth before that. You could argue that those were the two best defensive teams. Indiana would have an argument that those were the two best defensive teams in the playoffs besides Miami. And Miami just beat the two of them back to back. And so for people like me who have been a little bit down on the offense, who have been saying we need more from Beck, I'm not backing down. I need more from Carson Beck if you're going to win this thing. There's no doubt about it. He needs to go from, and I'll say this, he has gone from a little bit reckless, risk-taker, freewheeling quarterback early in the year, just going to chuck it all over the yard and see what happens, to elite game manager. And he has become an elite game manager. He has. I hate the phrase game manager, however, and I want to see him take that next step from elite game manager to elite playmaker, because he's always been an elite playmaker, but doing it with that elite game management has been something that's eluded him. I'd rather have him just managing games and hand the ball off to number 4 and the rest of those guys back there, Mark Fletcher Jr. But we're going to need Carson Beck to beat somebody with his arm. I can feel it. I know it's coming. We're going to need that to happen like he did against Notre Dame, right? And I want to give him the props for that, like he did against Florida State, right? So I really believe that needs to happen. And I also believe Malachi Toney needs to make big plays within the offense, and you just don't see that type of guy getting shut out. It's one of the problems I have with Dawson. When did you see Ted Ginn Jr. or Desmond Howard or Percy Harvin or our guy Santana Moss, Roscoe Parrish? When do those guys get shut out? They don't get shut out. And to me, they've tried a lot of ways to get Toney the ball. They've used him, at quarterback, the Malley Cat. They've handed it to him. They've done everything they can on some levels to do it. but they haven't found one that's really worked and busted open a big play. He almost got the punt return against A&M, Alex, but I got those two things out of the way in the beginning because those are the only two possibilities anybody has of beating Miami. I'll make it three. One is Beck starts throwing interceptions again, gets a little carried away. Two is Mario beats himself with in-game coaching and choices and decisions. And number three is we don't get the big play somewhere from someone. Last week it was a pick six.
I think this is a game where they rediscover the big plays because to me, styles make fights. Ole Miss, they're so different from the first two teams that Miami faced in the playoff. They're dangerous in different ways. This one is so much more about the offense and the unique challenges that quarterback Trinidad Chambliss is going to give to Miami. But when it comes to scoring points and picking up yardage, it's a more favorable matchup than the last two. I mean, Ohio State, one of the top defenses in the country. Texas A&M, same thing. And they were very prepared for Malachi Toney. And I think the game plans of these last two opponents was we're going to do whatever we can to make sure number 10 is not the guy who beats us, right? Now, I'm sure Ole Miss will have that same mindset. I just don't think they have the horses defensively to do what Ohio State and Texas A&M were able to do. So I think Malachi is going to have his handprints and fingerprints on this game in more than being a decoy, which was kind of the case against Ohio State. And then obviously there were ups and downs in the Texas A&M game. He did score the game-winning touchdown in that game, but there weren't a whole lot of stats that came with that. But I think he's going to be able to do more in this one. And in terms of Miami's game plan, Grease, I mean, it's been talked about. I mean, you watch a lot of different shows, and they're saying pretty much the same things about this one. Miami would like to turn it into a brawl. Ole Miss would like to turn the game into a track meet. And Miami's got a favorable matchup on paper when it comes to running the football. Ole Miss does not have an elite rushing defense. It's a slightly below average rushing defense. So when you talk about controlling time of possession, you would think with the way Fletcher has been running in the playoffs that Mark Fletcher Jr. is going to be able to move those chains, and Miami's going to be able to limit the amount of time and the amount of plays that Ole Miss's offense have. But I do agree with you in that I think you're going to need to hit some plays through the air. I think this is the type of game where you're going to try to emphasize the run, but you're also going to try to emphasize some downfield plays, play action. So I think this is a game where Carson Beck is going to have more opportunities to connect downfield, and hopefully Miami does that because, again, as good as Miami's defense is, it's probably the best offense you've faced all year. So you're going to have to score some points. You're not going to win this game scoring 10 points the way you did against A&M.
No, and your defense has obviously been the strength of this team all season long with no opponent scoring 30, and we know the deal there, what they've done in the playoffs. It has been absolutely unbelievable what they've done in the playoffs. And Reuben Bain Jr., you see the clips that go on social media after these games, and he was in the locker room. He's not a loud guy. He's a quiet leader on this team. But he said something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing, is they're not as hungry as we are. They didn't work like we worked. They didn't feel like we felt. They don't want this as bad as we do. And so for Ohio State, easy for Miami to really get up for that game. Easy for the offensive line to say, oh, yeah, number one defense will show you. Easy for our defensive line to say, oh, Sands picking everybody apart, elite receivers will show you. And Bain and Mesidor by far played their best games of the season, these last two. They're peaking right now. Everybody is on the line of scrimmage for Miami. And those backup defensive ends that played through the injuries this year, they're starting to get better. Lightfoot had a sack in the game against Ohio State. So all that's coming. And then the secondary that was so maligned last year, and rightfully so, all the changes they made coming in. And, you've seen teams these last couple of weeks where you're saying, oh, better not blitz this guy. Oh, better not blitz that guy. These DBs won't hold up. Well, Heatherman hasn't really changed his style all that much. He's still sending a lot of blitzes, and those DBs have more than held their own. Now, against Texas A&M, they did get a lot of passing yards late in the game. Ohio State did too. But when the game was still undecided against both these teams, the Miami secondary won its matchup, or at the very least played even with that great Ohio State receiving core, right? And imagine if Jeremiah Smith had come to Miami, they would have had nothing. So the point being, even the kids that are playing well for Ohio State are from South Florida. So if we keep all those kids home, it'll be like Howard Schnellenberger used to say, the state of Miami. It still holds true all these decades later. But the thing about the Ole Miss offense, you said they want to turn it into a track meet. Alex, let them. let them turn it into a track meet. You know what? I love that our running game can close it out, and we know that's in our back pocket. If they want to turn it into a track meet, are they better than Malachi Toney and CJ Daniels, who played in the SEC last year at LSU, and Carson Beck all that time? Are they better than I don't know. I don't think they are, Alex. So my point is, let them turn it into a track meet at times in the game if they want to, because they can't beat us there either. But if we just come out and think we're going to win this game pounding the football like we did against Ohio State, we're sadly mistaken. Ole Miss will put more guys in the box. They're not going to be as arrogant as Ohio State with their scheme. I thought Patricia was arrogant as hell in that game and didn't make adjustments because of it. And I love that his arrogance ended up beating him in the end. I don't think it's going to happen with Ole Miss. Regardless, they've been through a lot with that program, and it's been tumultuous all year. Is he staying? Is he going with Lane Kiffin? And then all this tumultuousness in the playoffs and uncertainty. Nothing's been steady all year, and they've still managed to have the year they've had and win 2 playoff games. So they've got to be feeling bulletproof right now, Alex.